Chapter 21 explains capital investment decisions and the time value of money. Learning objectives for this chapter include to describe the importance of capital investments and the capital budgeting process, to use the payback period and rate of return methods to make capital investment decisions, use the time value of money to compute the present and future values of single lump sums and annuities, and 4, use discounted cash flow models to make capital investment decisions. The first learning objective is to describe the importance of capital investments and the capital budgeting process. The process of making capital investment decisions is often referred to as capital budgeting. Capital budgeting is planning to invest in long-term assets in a way that returns the most profitability to a company. Companies can make capital investments when they acquire capital assets. Those are assets used for a long period of time. Capital investments include buying new equipment, buying new plants, automating production, and developing major commercial websites. In addition to affecting operations for many years, capital investments usually require large sums of money. There are 4 popular methods of analyzing potential capital investments. 1 is the payback period. 2 is accounting rate of return, or ARR. 3 is the net present value. 4 is the internal rate of return. The first 2 methods, payback period and rate of return, are fairly quick and easy and work well for capital investments that have a relatively short lifespan, such as computer equipment and software that may have a useful life of only 3 to 5 years. Payback period and rate of return are also used to screen potential investments from those that are less desirable. The payback period provides management with valuable information on how fast the cash invested will be recouped. The rate of return shows the effect of the investment on the company's accrual-based income. However, these 2 methods are inadequate if the capital investments have a longer lifespan. Why? Because these methods do not consider the time value of money. The last 2 methods, the net present value and the internal rate of return, factor in the time value of money, so they are more appropriate for longer-term capital investments, such as Smart Touch's expansion to manufacturing DVDs. Management often uses a combination of methods to make final capital investment decisions. Capital budgeting is not an exact science. Generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, are based on accrual accounting, but capital budgeting focuses on cash flows. The desirability of a capital asset depends on its ability to generate net cash inflows, that is, inflows in excess of outflows. Over the asset's useful life, recall that operating income based on accrual accounting contains non-cash expenses, such as depreciation expense and bad debt expense. The capital investment's net cash flows, therefore, will differ from its operating income. Of the 4 capital budgeting methods covered in this chapter, only the accounting rate of return method uses accrual-based accounting income. The other 3 methods use investments' projected net cash flows. What do the projected net cash flows include? Cash flows include future cash revenue generated from the investment, any future savings in ongoing cash operating costs resulting from the investment, and any future residual value of the asset. To determine the investment's net cash inflows, the inflows are netted against the investment's future cash outflows, such as the investment's ongoing cash operating costs and refurbishment, repairs, and maintenance costs. The initial investment itself is also a significant cash outflow. However, in our calculations, we will always consider the amount of the investment separately from all other cash flows related to the investment. The projected net cash inflows are given in our examples and in the assignment material. In reality, much of the capital investment analysis revolves around projecting these figures as accurately as possible using input from employees throughout the organization, like production, marketing, and so forth, depending on the type of capital investment. The first step in the capital budgeting process is to identify potential investments. For example, new technology and equipment that may make the company more efficient, competitive, and/or profitable. Employees, consultants, and outside sales vendors often offer capital investment proposals to management. After identifying potential capital investments, managers project the investment's net cash flow and then analyze the investments using one or more of the 4 capital budgeting methods described. Sometimes the analysis involves a 2-stage process. In the first stage, managers screen the investments using one or both of the methods that do not incorporate the time value of money. Payback period or accounting rate of return. These simple methods quickly weed out undesirable investments. Potential investments that pass stage 1 go on to a second stage of analysis. In the second stage, managers further analyze the potential investments using the net present value and/or internal rate of return methods. Because these methods consider the time value of money, they provide more accurate information about the potential investment's profitability. Some companies can pursue all of the potential investments that meet or exceed their decision criteria. However, because of limited resources, other companies must engage in capital rationing and choose among alternative capital investments. Based on the availability of funds, managers determine if and when to make specific capital investments. For example, management may decide to wait 3 years to buy a certain piece of equipment because they consider other investments more important. In the intervening 3 years, the company will reassess whether it should still invest in the equipment. Perhaps technology has changed and even better equipment is available. Perhaps consumer tastes have changed, so the company no longer needs the equipment. Because of changing factors, long-term capital budgets are rarely set in stone. Most companies perform post-audits of their capital investments. After investing in assets, they compare the actual net cash inflow generated from the investment to the projected net cash inflows. Post-audits help companies determine whether the investments are going as planned and deserve continued support, or whether they should abandon the project and sell the assets. Managers also use feedback from post-audits to better estimate net cash flow projections for future projects. If managers expect routine post-audits, they will more likely submit realistic net cash flow estimates with their capital investment proposals.